Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labor supports the road user charges bill with some reservations. But before I get on to that, I did listen with some interest to Jamie Lee Ross's contribution. And Mr. Ross, that was the first time I've heard you speak, actually, and I thought you made some very interesting points, particularly about transport overall and the importance of transport on the economic and social well-being of New Zealand. And that is why we on this side of the House have always supported a balanced transport policy. And we don't believe that transport has to be about just tarmac and road building. We believe, and we have for a long time, that it's not also only about cycling and walking, but it's actually utilising all the modes of transport, including road transport, the sea transport, air and rail, for the best economic benefit of this country. And so when we were in government, we set out to have a fair funding system for roading and transport in New Zealand. And it was the Labor government that brought in hypothecation of all funding for roading, which included road user charges, included excise duty and registration into a land transport fund, something the previous government had refused to do for many, many years, which enables us now to have a much fairer approach to funding transport in New Zealand. But if anyone should know about a ruck system and getting a fair ruck system in place, it probably should be a former Minister of Transport who actually confronted many truckies in 2008 when I in fact increased the ruck charges for truckies in this country. And so I've been very interested in the progress of this bill. The former Minister of Transport called this bill a fairer ruck system for everybody bill. But I wonder why there were people who were upset about it if that was the case. And it seemed to me there was a fair amount of spin over substance in Mr. Joyce's comments in that respect. But in July 2008, as the former Minister of Transport, I increased road user charges, the second increase they had since 1989. So in 19 years, road user charges went up twice, 2 years in a row, and I put them up. And that was for vehicles over 6 tonne. And what happened? The truck operators took to the road in protest. So I said, what I want is a fairer system. One where all the ruck operators paid their fair share and they got their fair share. But they went to protest over 2 issues. One, the amount of increase that was going to be charged to them. In fact, it was an extra $32 a year for a small diesel car with an average mileage. And for a typical 5-tonne truck, just listen and you might learn something, Mr. Woodhouse. For a typical 5-tonne truck, it was $53 a year. And for a 23-tonne truck, which is capable of carrying quite a lot of freight, it was $198 a year. And the reason being that diesel is not subject to any taxation apart from less than half a cent per litre, compared to 42.524 cents a litre for a car. So I wanted a balanced and fair system. The second reason they protested at that time was they didn't get enough notice there was going to be an increase. The year before, I had given a 3 days notice that there was going to be an increase in road user charges. And what happened? We had many operators went out and pre-purchased ruck at the old rates, costing the government $17 million. And so there was a protest. I set up a working party in conjunction with the industry to look at the formula we could have for setting ruck for heavy vehicles and to put in place legislation to address the notice issue. We put onto that committee 3 people with expertise and knowledge, and they were to report back in March 2009. We are almost March 2012, and we have legislation finally going through this House that is going to, in two respects, particularly one particular effect, be a big impact on a high percentage of trucking firms. But what exactly that impact's going to be at this stage is still secret. Nobody knows what the figures are. They haven't been divulged. And the question I'm wanting to ask is, will they protest again? Because they will have a reason to this time. Because rather than come up with a system that addresses the notice period, under this bill, the charges will be set by regulation by the Minister without public debate. No final numbers will be known before this bill becomes law. The actual charges will be set at a later date, and it's seen to be a pretty complicated process, and it could have legal challenges and lead to cost and delay. And one of the submissions to the Select Committee pointed out that Section 79 provides for 42 days notification of regulations specifying the changes. But there is no process for consultation, so I cannot see there's been any improvement for the issues that were raised in 2008 and what's happening in this bill. You see, the Road Transport Forum demanded consultation, and that is what I thought was going to happen in this bill. I cannot see in it how this is occurring. And perhaps I could remind the members what was said at the time that, in fact, I increased road user charges, and what the National Party said about it. They said it was sneaky to raise road user charges without warning. But that's what's going to happen in this legislation. It said it's going to pile huge costs on people, but people aren't going to know what those increases are going to be. And Bill English went so far as to say that we change things in the dead of night and we promised to consult on it, and there should be consultation. Where in this bill, and when it's passed, is there going to be consultation before road user charges are increased? That was the basis of the protest in 2008. And so it'll be interesting to see if Tony Freelander comes out of retirement and asks the truckies to once again protest now against a national government. After all, Tony Freelander was a former National Party Member of Parliament. I wonder if he has the same strength of feeling against what's happening now as what happened when we were in government. The second major issue that has been protested against is the change moving from nominated weight to gross weights for calculating road user charges. Well, what does all that mean? To the people listening out there, it doesn't mean an awful lot. But at present, road user charges are based on distance travelled and weight carried, and the carrier has to estimate the actual gross weight to be carried in advance. For example, and I've never forgotten this example that was told to me by Fonterra way back in the time I was Minister of Transport. Their trucks could carry 50 tonne of milk. They're actually only allowed to carry 44 tonnes, so they don't fill their truck till it's to its full weight. But they are actually going to be charged for carrying 50 tonne weight. That is what their maximum allowable weight would be. And so Fonterra have opposed this bill. They've actually said it fails to do what it said it's going to do. Operators will now be deemed to be carrying the maximum permissible load on the road at all times. And that is going to put a huge hike on the smaller operators. Now, I know it suits some of the bigger operators. They are the members of the Road Transport Forum. Some of them were very good at avoiding road user charges, but it's not going to help many of the smaller truck operators. And one operator said an additional average cost of $18,000 per vehicle for him, totalling an extra $137,000 per year. So I'm saying there should be a protest about these changes by this government if people were really concerned about changes that had been in the past and wanting a fairer system. Also, how can it be, as it's much claimed by this government, to be a fiscally neutral change when those who carry lighter loads are going to be disadvantaged? I think that the government missed a very good opportunity to make it fairer.
Melissa Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.